with her experiences as a country school student in Wapello County. This is Meredith Morgan doing the interview, and today's date is March 3rd, 2006. Okay, so, Barb?
Yes.
First, tell me about when and where you went to country school.
I started in I got it wrote down here, August 23rd, 1943 at the Hickory Flat number 6 school.
Okay.
And it was Green Township here in Wapello County. And I went there for 7 years.
Okay.
It was an experience that I shall never forget.
Okay. Did you move at all during your country school career, or were you always at that same school?
No, I moved when we had to sell we rented the property in which we were farming, and it was sold, and so we moved to town. So in 1950, that ended my school in the country, and I went to town and finished up school in town.
Okay. How far away did you and your family live from the school you attended?
I'd say approximately a mile.
Okay. So think back to a morning when you were getting ready to go to school. What did you have to do before you could leave the house for school?
Back then I had a few chores to do, and like, feed some chickens and feed my dog, and school. I mean, we children sometimes ran the school, and the teacher ran all.
Wow.
She did it one time. She got so upset with us. And during that time, the boys that went to school at that time, that they were quite older boys, because they didn't attend school during sometimes in the spring and the fall when they had to work in the fields. And so when they left the school to go to high school, if they did go to high school, they were, close to manhood, and some of them quit before they went there. But so there's an age difference there from wee little ones to up to 18, 19 years old.
Okay. So you talk about the school not being very disciplined. What are some stories of things that happened at school, if you'd be willing to share?
Sure. I know it was, I had came from in town school, and I couldn't believe the freedom I had at a country school, whereas at we did learn, but we had things like some of the we'd go outside, and sometimes we wouldn't come in when the bell rang or something, and our teacher had to come after us, and we had such things as outhouses. And a lot of times we'd stay in the outhouse, saying that we had to be out there just so we wouldn't go to school. Other times there'd be a attraction like the horses. During that we call recess or noon hour or whatever, and we took our lunch too. And a lot of times that lunch was taken in a paper sack or a cardboard box. And I can remember when my lunch cardboard box got wet during the rain, and everything fell out in the mud. I ended up with an apple or something like a wash off. And but we would ride horses, and the boys at that time, I can remember they were riding, most of the horses they had at that time was work horses. So when I got on one, there's no saddle, and of course my feet just stuck out on each side of him. And they were running the horses, and when the boys got on there, the horse would run. That's what they wanted them to do. Mm-hmm. Well, I got upset because I couldn't ride the horse, so I told them I wanted to ride the horse too. So they said, okay, so I got on the horse, and I hardly got on that horse till it took off. And when it did, I wasn't on it, and too good, and I slid off in front of it, right in front of it. And when I fell, I grabbed the reins, and that horse could have killed me, but because I fell in front of it, and the big feet, about this big on those horses. And when I fell to the ground, the horse was trying to steady itself, and when it did, its foot came over my stomach area. And instead of that horse putting its weight on me, which could maybe, it slid down to the side. It didn't want to hurt me, but it was trying to balance itself.
Okay.
And there I am. I couldn't get back on. I had got on we had a cement porch, and I got on the cement porch and got on the horse, but there wasn't any cement porch there, so I couldn't find a way to get on, so I had to walk back leaving the horse. The boys got a kick out of that. They thought, oh yeah, And, but we had such things, that teacher tolerated that. And I know at one time they brought a billy goat into the school, and I'm not sure if you know, a billy goat has an odor to it that you won't believe. And this teacher was one who hadn't been raised out in the country, and so when she saw this billy goat come in, she got very scared and jumped up on the desk, and the rest of us got a big kick out of it. We couldn't hardly stand the odor, but the boys thought it was a big good kick, Well, the rest of us did too. And so that teacher, she was very upset, but and finally she got the boys to take the billy goat out, but we could hardly stay in the schoolhouse after that. But we did. And sometimes the teacher, I know one time we had, we used to have pike suppers, and they'd have a little skit, you do with the curtains up, and I know at one time the teacher got so upset because we just wasn't with it. We wasn't really wanting to do anything. She jerked the curtains down, she took off. This is around noon, and she walked probably the mile to the highway where I lived. I lived along the highway, and she walked up there and caught the bus, which she normally did, and left. She thought she had it. The rest of us kids, we didn't want to go home. We'd have to work or something. So we played around the schoolhouse till about the time to go home. And the boys, they left. I don't know where they went, but the rest of us stayed there, and then we walked on home. And so our parents thought we were in school. And the school teacher was young then, and some of the older boys, they got a crush on the school teacher, and they got in a fight. I remember they got in a fight, wrestling around, and we had a wooden flagpole. And they were running into that and broke that off. And I think the teacher thought it was, it's pretty nice that these guys are fighting over her. And one day she took us to a coal mine. We had a coal mine south of the schoolhouse, so southeast, I believe. I can't remember the name of the school. The coal mine, coal mine. And we thought this was fun, and we went down into the coal mine. We rode down in with the coal miners. And the school teacher, she had a boyfriend over there, so we kids got, our parents didn't know that we were going to a coal mine. And I know some of the little ones went on home, and meanwhile, the parents started calling around wanting to know where the rest of us were. And the little ones couldn't tell them we was at the coal mine because they really didn't know where we were. So after that, the school teacher got disciplined just a little for that. We thought it was fun.
Yeah. When you say she got disciplined, what happened?
Well, at this time, that school teacher was staying with a relative of ours, my uncle, and the board told her that it wasn't. I found this out later. At the time, but later on, when I got older, they said that they told her that it wasn't the best thing to do with young children, taking them to a coal mine, we could have got hurt or something, and the parents wasn't aware of it, and so forth and so on. So she never did anything like that again. And I know that it was very cold in these one-room schoolhouses. They weren't very warm. We had a wood stove, and we had to keep putting wood in that and keep it. And some of the parents got so we were going to have a hot meal. Wow, I tell you. So some of the parents, I remember sending, they'd send some onions with this one group, and some of the parents would send soup beans, and some would send some pork hocks or something. And the teacher would put that all in this pan and put it on top of that old wood stove, and it'd cook all. And it really tasted good. And we'd have us a nice hot meal. And that was quite often, and we enjoyed. That happened in this newer schoolhouse. Now, the first one-room schoolhouse, that didn't happen in, but this one here did. Okay. And I remember going down and getting wood and helping out and putting wood in the wood stove. And when we got to this schoolhouse, though, we were more disciplined in that the teacher, we had an older teacher, and she knew how to handle. She'd raised her children, and so she had some problems with the older children, and so she went to their parents, apparently, I was told, and talked to them that she was going to have discipline around there, or she wasn't going to teach their children. And so I guess that later on I learned that the boys, and particularly the boys at that time, but some of the girls too, was told, let's cool it and try to learn something. And I know that they were better at the schoolhouse here. And I know that one of the boys I had before, he had a bicycle, and he'd let me ride his bicycle, but he didn't have handlebars on it. He'd taken his father probably had taken a piece of metal, and it was just a long piece of metal about this long, and they bolted it to the frame of the board, and you steered it this way. Oh, I had fun with it. I never had a bicycle myself, so I really was happy to ride his bicycle.
Okay.
And our recesses and our noon hours is a little longer than most, probably. And the thing that I found out sometimes was that during my lessons, sometimes the teacher would have some of the older children or trying to help with the younger ones and teaching them, because she taught, I think, from at least first grade to 8th grade, all in that one-room schoolhouse, and so she had her job cut out for her. So sometimes she'd have the older one, and during that time, if I was trying to study, it was hard for me to study if I heard some of the rest of them having fun or giggling or laughing or joking or something. And I had pigtails at that time. And more than once I had somebody stuck my pigtails in the inkwell. So I remember I got a little upset with that, so one time I was sitting there and I knew they were sticking my pigtails in the... So I didn't do anything till after they got them in there, and then I shook my head. Threw ink all over them. Of course, I had a job trying to clean up the ink, and I still don't think because the ink at that time was permanent. And all things like that went on, and going to the outhouse was a chore during bad weather. If you got wet or you got cold, and just good old days, as they call it. Well, I don't know what else you might want to know, except that when I did leave there and go to town school, it was hard for me until I got used to it to really be disciplined enough to start learning because it was harder. I mean, they stuck with down here. But the teachers, some of the teachers were very nice. They would try to help you. And they tried to be one-on-one, but you had to, I think in each one of my classes, I got a little older, I forget how many was in my class at the time. I wasn't even born during this time, so I better not look there. But, what are we grown for? I'm looking here and no. And a name, Hickory Flat, I'd like to know how they got that name, Hickory Flat. I never did know how they got that name. And, all these people listed here, I remember about all of them, and some of the boys later on. I really liked one of the boys, and he went into the Army. And I know he came back, and I saw him after that, but then he died a prisoner of war. And so a lot of these boys are still living. His brother just recently died, and some of the boys smoked, and a lot of times that bothered the teacher. And they'd search the boys' pockets and stuff. I remember one boy gave me his cigarettes in my desk, so but he wouldn't search me, but she searched him. And I don't know anything about it, I did that for him, and otherwise she would take it away, and destroy it. But we were sometimes monsters, and other times we just kids who wasn't very well disciplined. And there's very seldom was any real meaner kids. If they got too far out of hand, the teacher either went home or sent us home or something. I played hooky a few times. And I remember my cousin John, I was talking to him. He and I got sick. And I really wasn't sick, but I wanted to go home. And so he had to help me home, of course, And so we told the teacher that I just so sick and I had to have Don help take me home. So I went, I'm so sick, and as soon as we got outside of the schoolhouse, whoopee, we were just fine. And we started going through the fields, and if we saw some horses, Don was a good rider, If he could get me on a horse, we, and a lot of times we didn't have any bridles or anything. We took and slapped the horse on one side or the other, or an RG haul or something. And, but anyway, we thought we was having fun until the teacher jumped out through some bushes and saw us. And so, we went back to school a lot faster than we left. And so, you had to be really sick then. And, I know if a blizzard came up, one time a blizzard came up and she didn't know whether to send us home. And so, and there's no way of calling, you didn't have a phone or anything. And so she tried to get us dressed to go, and as we started out the door, the snow had increased so badly she called us back in and told us to stay at the schoolhouse. And now the bigger boys, they're going home, so she let them go home, But and a lot of times then the parents of somebody would come along with a team of horses and a wagon and some blankets and bundle us up and take us each one and dropping us up at home. And they hauled us home that way. And because there wasn't, I don't think at that time there was too many that lived much more than 2 miles from the schoolhouse. And so we got home, and if we woke up and the snow was deep and it was really cold, of course we didn't go to school, of course. And the roads were really bad, and that's a lot of times when our parents would hook up a sled or something and take us to school if we could get to school that way. And I must say that my education there was more of humanity than it was of books.
Okay.
And more of people. And boys, a lot of times, they brought a rifle to school one time, shot a rabbit, and skinned it, and we cooked the rabbit. Well, the rabbit was so tough we couldn't eat it, but we gnawed on it and chewed on it. Oh, it was terrible.
Wow.
But we had a good time, but not much knowledge into where we could books and paper and so forth. And I don't remember. I loved reading and writing myself. Sometimes school was boring to me because I could read a lot and get ahead of everything, and then after that I didn't have anything else to do to get in trouble or something.
Was there anything in particular you liked about reading and writing?
I can remember I liked the Jane Run, Dick Run, and all them. I enjoyed those books. Had animals in them, and I loved the pictures. I thought the artwork in them were so nice. I just loved it. And I'd look at that artwork and study the scenery, and I just loved it. And then I used to draw. Of course, all my horses had 2 or 4 legs at that time. And but when I did read some of the stories, arithmetic was my course. I wasn't very good in arithmetic. And I know I stayed after school a lot of times trying to figure. Never did make much good in arithmetic, except one time, and then for some reason some teacher did something. I don't know what she did, but she found a way. And when that happened, I tell you, I just lit up like a light bulb, and arithmetic was so easy. I was so happy, but then I left, and after that I lost it. I couldn't seem to. In fact, when I got in high school, one of my teachers, I want to take algebra. Oh, she was the algebra teacher too. She said, "No, Barbara," she said, "I think you should take something else."
Do you remember what the name of the teacher who helped you out so much was? Or who any of your other teachers were?
Yeah, she was an older teacher. I think her name was Mrs. Green, I believe. I can't remember. I don't remember seeing her name here.
Yeah, I don't think all the years are covered in the book.
Betty Brown was one of my teachers, and she's. I'm trying to find if I know she was an older lady, and she was patient with me, and she seemed to try harder than my hand. Because sometimes the world was. I looked at the world as such a mystery out there, and I wanted to learn everything I could about it, and I couldn't seem to find the answers. And so in my mind, I tried to make up the answers that I thought I could feel. I mean, of the trees and the land, how did a tree grow, and so forth and so on. But this one teacher, she kept me after school, and she's the only teacher too that had a car. She drove a car to school, and she would drive me home then, and she worked with me. And I thought that out of the school teachers at that time at country school, she's the only one that really I learned anything from, and I was happy for that. And excuse me.
Okay, so you were telling me about Mrs. Green?
Yeah, I think that was her name, but I'm not I'm not sure, so
Okay.
forgive me if that's incorrect. I believe that was her name. I was
Okay.
trying to find out. I don't see her name here. But, and some of these teachers I don't remember at all, but
Would it be further on the next page?
I was wondering if she was, Betty Brown's 46. I remember her. She was, I'm trying to think about, maybe she was over here. Oh, wait a minute, Milt. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, Edith Edgen. I wish I could remember where she lived. Oh. All I know is this school teacher lived south of the schoolhouse. That could have been Edith, and I can't even pronounce her name. I don't know how to pronounce her name. That name seems to ring a bell, but whether it is, I'm not sure. That one there.
Looks like Edgren. E-D-G-R-E-N.
Now,
Edgren.
see, she was there just before. See, I left that school in 1950, so, and she was a teacher in 1949. Mary Ward, I don't know. But I don't know. I noticed at the end of this book, I thought they had a list of teachers. Teachers for Hoover Flat number 6.
Okay.
I don't see her name.
Or do you remember what year that was? What grade you were in?
Well, this is just before I went to town, and I was still in grade school. I think it was probably the 6th or 7th. Well, maybe we can count. I was there for 7 years, and I think I started when I got there in the 1st grade. So I've had to be I flunked.
Right.
I flunked 2nd grade because I just couldn't handle it for some reason. They just, I can remember flunked 2nd grade. Oh my gosh,
Was that common in the country schools to hold students back a year?
I don't know. I don't think so. If you were a country student and started there, when you was old enough to go to school, I'm not sure.
Right.
But I came from town, and we used to milk and cookies and a little nap and storybooks and so forth. But when I went out there, they tried to teach you something if you listen, or things are different. And I just thought, wow, this is quite, this is. It was hard for me to understand the difference between what you were trying to learn in a book and you trying to learn from the people and students you were around, and I just couldn't handle it, and so they held me back. But after school became, like I said, school was all right, but I couldn't seem to have enough to keep me interested. Like if I read books and so forth, or if I had an assignment, I'd get it done, and then there wasn't anything else for me to do, and it was sort of boring. And I would try to daydream and look out or take off or something. I haven't seen her name yet in here, so that must have been that lady sounds like the one that perhaps was the one that I can't remember. I should have asked Don and them if he could remember where she lived, because that would have given me a good clue. Because and some of the parents would come, and during the wintertime we had sleds, and we'd have a good time on those hills. That older schoolhouse was situated where you went down the hill, long hill up this way, and we had a ball, and I can remember some of the parents came over there with a pickup, and she said she would take us kids up the hill, help us out. And she'd load us in the back of the pickup, and she got up to that hill, and she started spinning a little bit and and the engine died. And here she came down backwards. And of course, going backwards with and the truck started swinging back and forth like this. And well, of course, we thought, hey, that's sort of fun. I don't know whether I was scared or not. I thought, wow, I'm swinging back and forth. But she was petrified she was going to go over in a deep ravine, and kill half of us. But she held it and got down on the flat. But boy, she piled us out there and told us to walk up the hill after that. But and we could take our sleds, or else I'd borrow the sled if I didn't have one. I borrowed one or used one over there. But and we made our own games, and our pie supper and our little skits was fun. And I enjoyed some of the skits. And somebody always had either a horse or a dog or something over at the school. Oh, and I remember the boys taking a rat, a couple of rats. That not only sent the teacher up the table, but everybody out the door. Some of the girls went out, of course, and the younger boy. But the boy, and I wasn't scared of rats. I had seen rats at home, and sometimes if they got down into a jar that I was in, I just reached down, pick them up, and put them out. I wouldn't kill them. I didn't want to kill them.
Yeah.
So they didn't really bother me, but then that made me. I thought that was funny, seeing everybody screaming, hollering around, And I don't know what else to tell you. I'm sorry.
It's all right. What else did you do at recess time? You mentioned there were some games that you kind of made
Well,
up?
we played baseball.
Okay.
I mean, what we could. Somebody would bring a baseball, and I know a lot of times we didn't have a baseball. We would play. I was telling Barb the last time we went up to see the rabbits, we played catch with what they called a hairball. And this hairball, my father, Dad, he worked at John Morrell's, and they slaughtered cattle, and inside the cattle's stomach would be this hair would start forming into a ball, and it would have a hard coating on it. And when it dried out, it was hard. I mean, but if you dug a hole in it, all this hair would come out. Well, they were so lightweight, but it's hard, and we didn't have a baseball. Some of them, younger kids could hit those hairballs pretty good, but the boys, because they smashed them up, But we used whatever we had, and our bases with nothing maybe but a rock or something, or clog dirt or something like that. And we played baseball, and wasn't much football back then. I can't remember any football.
Okay.
But I remember baseball, and then we played tag and followed the leader, and I forget. It seemed that there was something where you went around in a circle, and I can't remember what that was. And the teacher sometimes got involved. And then a lot of times we went on hikes, which I thoroughly enjoyed, these hikes. And we would we'd go through the timber, and we'd look for different trees and creeks and so forth. And any animals what we saw, but we made so much noise, most animals was a mile away before what time we got there. And but I enjoyed that because a lot of times the teacher loved to show us about nature, and I thoroughly enjoyed those teachers too. To me, I learned more about nature during that stay in the country school, because I lived in the country anyway. But I mean, I enjoyed that more than when I got to high school. It was fascinating, and I did learn a lot. But then seemed to me that I longed for that trip into the woods and back, and so a lot of times we'd take a walk or something, or like I said, we went sled riding and rode horses or play tag. I remember tag and hide and go seek. I can remember, of course, the boys when they hid good for a while.
Wow. So where was there to hide on the playground?
Well, that's it. The school, this school was out in the open more. But the one that we had before, the older school, Hickory Flat, it was situated onto it. It had trees around it and acres. And I remember the outhouses being set not too far from the, and we'd run down through the timber. And I remember if we got thirsty, we would just drink out of the creek.
Where was the creek in relation to the schoolhouse?
School. I think the creek was sort of running southwest, and a lot of times they might have a dead tree, and then we'd try to walk across that dead tree without falling in the creek.
Okay.
If we got wet, we had to stay wet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people went barefooted, and a lot of times when I got to school, I would take my shoes off because I would save them, because those are the same shoes I'd wear most every place else. But we could go barefooted in school. But if you didn't, particularly in the last schoolhouse, you got splinters if you didn't watch it.
Okay.
And they had these seats that folded down, and then you had your little desk here to put your books in. And I drew pictures more than trees and horses and people, cowboys. Of course, I was doing the Gene Locker and Roy Rogers time, Hopalong Cassidy.
So,
And I think if I had to live over again, I would do it again. Except I would like to have more teachers like I had. That whatever her name was, I thought it was Green, but then I think it was that one, that Edith.
Okay.
I'd have to ask Dawn, and one of those two teachers was the older ones, Mildred Smith, but I think that was her. And she could control the rest of us, because she made it interesting. And when she said we shouldn't do something, we knew what she meant. And she seemed to have control. She was nice about it, and she seemed to praise you when you needed it, but she also meant what she said about not doing something. And later on in life, I got to thinking that she was a blessing in disguise, you might say, because she taught me more in that short period of time that I was with her than I think the whole time I was there. The whole 7 years. Okay. The sack lunches, I remember those so well. And a lot of times then some of the other kids who could, they had tin dinner boxes. And I felt sometimes bad because I didn't have one. I had an old paper sack or a cardboard box, and like I said, sometimes they weren't the best. They got wet. I a lot of times stuck my sack or something inside my coat, but to keep it from getting wet. And we'd eat our lunch, but I enjoyed the hot lunches that we had, so-called hot lunch. And we girls would end up doing dishes. And the teacher had all kinds of, I remember that was our home ec.
okay.
We serve up the meal and do the dishes.
Okay. So when you talk about lunchtime, where did you eat lunch at?
Right at your desk, or else you could get in a group. You could get in a group if you wanted to, but most of the time I ate at my desk because I could maybe read or draw or something, but if you wanted to eat in a group, you could. I remember the teachers, she ate at her desk a lot, And once in a while, some of the teachers would eat with, particularly the little ones. And, but,
Okay.
I remember the time that I lost my dinner, like I said, my bucket fell apart. I ended up with an apple. That seemed like the only thing. My sandwich was gone. It was in a mud hole. And I had 2 sandwiches and an apple. I think that was about the gist of my dinner. And, of course, we had water. We had it to school. But the apple I could save, but the teacher noticed that. And one thing, sometimes the kids would share. They had that, you share, And I think that was just one of the things that I found in country kids, that they shared things a lot, like the boy sharing his bicycle, and they seemed to share more than what I found in town kids. They, it was tough if you had me. But I found the country kids, and I love to share. And, I remember one thing I hated when I went to country school. I had to wear these long brown socks. They're like a hose, and I hated those things.
What else did you wear to country school?
Mostly dresses, of course, and coats and things like that. You wore dresses back then, and then these long brown socks. And I don't think I wore any blue jeans or anything like that while I was in country school back then. You just didn't do it back then. And and it wasn't anything fancy, of course.
Right.
If you just wore whatever. Most of my clothes were made out of flour sacks, which they were beautiful. I remember going with Mom to the feed store and picking out this sack of feed or something, and had beautiful. And she would take it home and sew it up so I could have me a dress. I went to school with this feed sack. I was proud of what I had, Of course, when I got there, I found 2 or 3 others that had feed sacks too, but they were nice then, and they helped out. And we had fried chicken a lot because we raised chickens, and and then whatever else we might have had on the farm, the pork and the beef. And those pie suppers were great. I remember people would gather at the school and see the little skit, and then they'd sell pies. And whoever pie you bought, you ate with the person, So a lot of times they'd put a girl and a boy together, see, And I remember just before I left there in 1950, they had some cars. People were driving cars or pickups at that time, and they would come to school. And I remember I was sitting in school, and I got this pie. And I just got, and the pie, I really didn't care for, but I got it, because who I was with, of course there was more than one that was in the car, it was not, I didn't like the pie, so I don't throw it out the window, see, and I thought I'd throw it out the window, and of course I forgot the window was up. Oh! Got splat, and there went that pie, all down the side of the car. Well, I spent half the time that they're cleaning up the car. Of course, Mom and them made me clean the car out. But I forgot when I went. And so that taught me to look before I did.
So in addition to the pie centers, what other things was the schoolhouse used for? Like polling or community events or anything?
I can't remember that back then, there being anything other than a schoolhouse.
Okay.
It seemed to me the only time the parents was there is if they came after us kids. Or, and a lot of times the mothers would come, they still had their aprons on. They just got notion to come, they'd hop in a pickup or get a team of horses, and away they'd come, and I could see them coming with their aprons on, and I can now I look back and I'm thinking, well, that's so odd to wear your apron, but an apron was just almost like a coat or something, or a dress. You had that apron on, and or if the mothers and them would bring over. Like sometimes they would bring over some food for us, or they'd bake a pie or cake for us kids. And the father and them would bring over wood. Of course, they brought wood over unless they sent the boys over, And they brought that over usually with a team of horses. And I remember for discipline a lot, when they brought team of horses or any horse over there, we had to clean up after the horse. That's what you got for discipline. You had to clean up after the horse, which some of us didn't care, but others, cared. And that was some of our jobs, clean up after the horse.
Were there other ways that the students or parents helped out with the upkeep of the schoolhouse or keeping the yard?
Yes. The men would help keep the school. Like if it needed a window or something, then they would do that. And I remember, and I do remember the women coming over there and putting some curtains up. And a lot of them come over there when we had these skits, and they would have curtains, and help repair them or put new ones up for us, And they supplied things like that. And what else seemed to me that? And they would supply when we had our so far hot meal, they supplied dishes and so forth. Seemed like they'd have a little group of dishes, and we'd had our dishes there and things like that. Salt and pepper and things like that you normally need and the men would take care of the stove if it broke down or something, which very seldom did a wood stove break down, but they took care of that, and that helped. Because they had the school board, I call school board, and they would try to keep that school up. And I remember, when the boys broke the flagpole, why the men came over and they put up a new flagpole, and I'm trying to think. If one of us did get sick, I can remember one of the kids got sick at the school, and she sent either one of the boys, the older boys, on a horse or on a bicycle and go to the nearest parent's farm, and they would get a pickup or a team of horses, and get the child home or something. And we lived 8 miles from town, and so for anybody to go to town, then we had to take the child to the highway and either in a car or truck and get them to the hospital or doctor or whatever we did. And I remember one of the young boys, I think he had appendicitis attack. And so the older boys, I remember him going to, I can't remember, it was a Ware or whoever lived close, I can't remember, I think it was a Ware, or Benny Ware, yeah, I think that was him. Anyway, going there, and they had horses. And I tell you, that was a fast pair of horses, but I think they'd done the boy more harm than good. I mean, they riding the back of this wagon, and away they went down the road. And of course, it was sort of a bumpy ride, but they got him to where they could get him to a vehicle and got him. And there were at times when, if the parents was gone or the dad was gone, like they went to the sale barn a lot. They'd go to sale barns. And there wouldn't be any vehicle there, so they had to just run past that house to the next one, and or else ended up along the highway. And so I remember emergencies like that being handled, something like that. But
Okay. Were there other local or world events that affected your school, such as a local influenza outbreak, or, for instance, looking at the international scene, how did World War II affect the school?
Yeah, that did affect us because we, like I said, a lot of young men was old enough that they were drafted into the service, and some of them didn't come back. Like the one that I was in, he never came back. I mean, if he came back, we don't know for sure what was in the box, but that did affect us and affected I remember us listening to we had no battery operated radio, and at home we would listen to the news report or whatever, and World War II ended it ended while I was still in the country, and I remember my uncle and dad and all of them, the guys got together and they reeled out their shotguns and blasted it in the air for celebration, and and just like a lot of the girls at that time made it through the school more than the boys did. I mean, they would go there, but it had to take a boy that was really wanted to learn something and go on to high school. And very seldom did they ever get to high school. A lot of times they did, but I got there, and some of them, most of them got to high school. But that, however, they ended up back on the farm or something. And I know I wanted to go to college, but I didn't get a chance to go to college because at that time they thought that my education was done with when I graduated. In fact, it wasn't for some other relatives. I wouldn't went to high school either because Dad and them thought that my place was in the home. And my education would begin there in the home. But I loved to learn, but it had to be something that was, I remember my folks always saying, you always wanted to know something that they thought it was ridiculous. Well, I wanted to know what was in space or something this way, I want to know how planes flew. And that's another thing. Once in a while, they'd have a plane go over, and it would fly, and we'd all run out and wave at the plane. We thought that was really something. And a lot of the boys, they wanted to be a pilot. Well, I ended up being a pilot, so I always wanted to be a pilot, but I didn't say very much about it. And I studied, that's one thing, I studied at school. They had a set of encyclopedias, and I would study encyclopedias, and I studied about aviation, and I loved that. And I knew more about airplanes back then than I did later on in life. And, but I couldn't spell very good either.
Okay. Did they have a dictionary at all at the schoolhouse?
Oh yeah, they had dictionaries and encyclopedias, but it seemed to me the teacher used those more than us kids did. But I'd get a hold of one, and I loved it, A lot of times I didn't always understand the words, but what words and the pictures. If they had pictures in them, I could learn by pictures. And I used to love geography. I liked that. I really loved geography when we started studying that. And I remember the different countries and what they raised. I was always interested to know what they raised and what they sent abroad, and what we used there and what they got from the United States, and what their culture was, like what they wore and so forth. And the pictures, I loved the pictures, because I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't read too good. But I was, a lot of times it bothered me to try to read, because when I did, I felt so bad, I either wouldn't do it, or I'd mumble through it or something, and it affected me in life later on. because I know if I had to send a paper in for a report or something, I wouldn't know for sure how to write it, And and then they say, what is that? And I'd say, well, can't you read that? I'd try to blame them for my poor writing and spelling, because, and so I tried. I could talk better or draw better than I could by writing, and but if I could read and have pictures, I learned more that way. A few words underneath it. I enjoyed that, and I would get an encyclopedia and crawl up someplace where a lot of times I wasn't very good at till later on in high school. Wasn't very good at sports, but I'd get an encyclopedia or something, and I didn't care for dictionaries because a lot of times they'd give me a word, I wouldn't know how to spell it, so I didn't know how to look it up. And I wouldn't say much to the teacher, and I used to, I hated to go to teacher and say, how do you, I just didn't care to do that. Except for just one last teacher. It seemed to me I could talk to her. And she didn't make you feel like you were so stupid, A lot of times some of the teachers made you feel like you were stupid. And I didn't care. I didn't really, but this teacher, I just felt like it, and I had a couple of those in 9th grade that was so wonderful too. And I remember out here at the air base, I saw them, and I walked up to that teacher and I said, I want to thank you because you taught me more than a lot of the teachers did. And she said, well, you're very kind, Barbara. She said, you was a good student. I thought, oh boy. She was really very kind. But they just seemed to know how to teach you. I just, and like I said, I felt so stupid and dumb, but, and I felt back then too, a lot of the teachers who had more time back then in the country schools than they do in town schools. Because it seemed to me when the time came for you to go home, you either were sent home with nothing or a bunch of homework, and that was it, But in the country schools, if you had some teachers, they would keep you afterwards, or they'd help you out. And I do remember one time, one of the teachers came to my home. It seemed to me I was sick, and some kind of test was coming up or something. I'm trying to think. Anyway, one of the teachers came to my home and read to me and stayed for dinner. We always, had dinner, and but that wasn't all the teachers, but a few of them.
Where did the teachers live?
Well, a lot of them, this one teacher I told you, she rode a bus out from town. And she rode that bus out, and then she walked to school, or some of the parents would take her to school, either in an old pickup or a horse and wagon or something. And a lot of them stayed, like one of them, Miss Betty Brown, she stayed at my uncle's. She stayed there, and during the school year. So they lived with some of the parents. Of course, we always thought that some of us always felt like that the kids that the parents that kept the school teacher got better treatment. Sometimes we got a little jealous. That always wasn't true, but we always thought, because teachers lived there, Particularly if we was having a bad time, we had to blame somebody.
Yes, yes. Now, when the teachers lived with families, did they usually have their own room or own space, or did they have to share with the kids?
I'm sorry, I don't understand
Okay.
the question.
Do you know, like, if teachers had their own room?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
They had, I know, like with my uncle, they had one room and that was it. And then they shared everything else, the bathrooms, and they ate meals there and things like that. And if they wanted to go to town, they went and caught the bus signaled it. Or a lot of times, my uncle and them was going to town. They went to town with him and then got their shopping done and came back. And they helped pay their way there too. I can't remember. I think they paid them not only something from like rent, I guess you would call it, and then they also paid for some of the food and things like that.
Okay. We're going to need to pause and switch. Okay. Would you like to go ahead and tell about the patrol, what you were telling me before we
I can't remember. It's like a school guard, and you wore a white belt that one went around your waist and the other crossed here, and you had a badge on it. And what I did, I got that job. We had a major highway, and the little kids had to cross that highway to go on to their homes. And I got the jobs at times, 1 week, and then the next week somebody else would do it or something. And I was so proud because I was helping these little kids across the highway. I thought I was being useful, and I really took that job seriously.
Well, it's a very important job to have.
Well, I sometimes took it too seriously. If there's a car half a mile away, now you better stay there, But I wanted to make sure I got them kids across there safely. But I did enjoy it, and that was the only thing that they had. There was, of course, other kids. When you got older, you got that job too. But I was proud to have it and to do that. And we did have major. We had trains going that. My cousin and I tried to ride these trains. It's called the Wabash, and we always call it the Wabash Cannonball, and it had an incline that right there on my uncle's farm, and when it came to the incline, it had a lot of weight on it. So we wanted to ride that to school, not too far from school. We cut across the fields and so forth. We got on that train one time. It slowed down enough to where Don got on one end of it and I got on the other end of it, and we rode it up there. It started going faster and faster, and we got so scared to get off from it, jump off from it. Well, of course, went past the school place, because we couldn't get off, and we didn't know when we was going to get off until finally it met another incline, and it slowed up enough to where we jumped off. And then we could hear highway noise, so we went back towards the highway. We ended up to where some of the other parents whose kids went to school, and instead of taking us to school, they took us home. And of course, we got our little heinies blistered because we didn't rode the train, And then time we got to school, it was about over, you might say, but we got to school and finished up. And then, like I said, if we didn't ride horse, we walked to school. And I can remember walking to school and the mud, and we tried to walk into the fields. And I remember I got slick or something, and I'd hang on to the fence to keep my footing going to school. And it seemed like that mile or whatever it was turned into 2 or 3 miles time I got there.
Wow. And
if it was that type of weather or day, then our parents would send us early enough that it would give us time to get there in reasonable time. But if we were late, the school teacher knew that at that time the reason why we were late, and it was an honest lateness. It wasn't one we just piddling around. And a lot of times we wore overshoes. I can remember if I didn't have any overshoes to wear, I wore my mom's or something, big old buckle overshoes, Right. Or one time I wore my dad's boots. It was a pair of rubber boots that he wore down at the barn, and I wore those to school. But and the school. I remember sometimes as kids got the duty too of sweeping up the school. And the school teacher, she had some jobs there. She sort of had to tidy the place up. And the boys would carve their names into the or somebody's girl's name or something into the desk, and we and those inkwells or something else.
Yeah, so you've got the desks, the inkwells, and you've mentioned encyclopedias and dictionaries. What else was there inside the classroom?
Well, besides normally they did have extra. I know I can't remember us buying a lot of school supplies. It was there. I can't remember. Like today, the kids go to town and they buy pencils and paper, so forth. I can't remember us doing that. I think that was supplied at the school, it seemed to me. And if there's anything, I don't remember. I remember carrying a few books home, but I don't think I was required to. It's just that I wanted to. And so there were things like that. And like I said, sometimes the older students, I found some of the older students was pretty nice. They seemed, particularly the girls, there wasn't very many boys that was interested. I don't think I had a man teacher in this school that I remember of all the years I went there. Well, not all the years, but I went and had a man school teacher. But a lot of the girls wanted to become a school teacher, so when they got about that age, thinking about going to high school, they really took their job seriously when they enjoyed having the teacher ask them to teach us. Dummies, but they really done it. I thought they done a good job, and I enjoyed having an older student too. That helped out a whole lot, and I think they really tried to help you. And I remember I was having a hard time spelling. Still do, and this one girl, she was trying so hard to teach me to spell, and I couldn't pronounce much of anything. And she said something about phonics. Well, I didn't know what phonics was, and if we were taught phonics, and I remember in town, but she seemed to know something about phonics. But how she learned, I think she must have learned from somebody else in her family that had this. And she tried to teach me to pronounce a word, and I didn't have a very good. And it seemed to me that I just couldn't seem to look up a word in the dictionary. But if I did, I thought it was quite an achievement.
Good for you. Yeah. Do you remember what brand of dictionary you had?
Well, I think it's just the old Webster dictionary. I think that's. I can't remember anything but Webster, but I don't know. But those books I still have around here somewhere. Some of my old school books.
Neat.
I think we found a Dick and Jane book, and then I found a geography book. Still had my name scribbled in it. And there were some science books that I thoroughly enjoyed. I love science. Oh, I love science. And it really bothered me that I as much as I love science, but because of my not being able to spell or pronounce words or something, but if I could get it by someone telling me about it, see, instead of reading how to do something, if they would tell me how to do it, I was okay. And they did have those, and the science book consisted of very basic. I remember one science. They tried to tell you how electricity is produced by salt and water, and that they would put salt in water, and they would have a battery operated like a flashlight or something, and they'd have these. In fact, I did that later too. You would solder some wire onto the different prongs, and you put it in plain water, and you didn't get anything. But as you poured the salt in it, then this light would glow, and so it showed you way that different things that would be good for electricity, conducting electricity.
Neat.
And I like that. I think, oh wow, you know, that was,
Neat. Did you get to do any other hands-on experiments like that? Or demonstrations?
well, they tried, like I said, that a lot of times the teacher would have us girls cooking things, you know, and
Okay.
I cared less about that kind of work. I'd do it. I'd rather be out in the barn with the horses or the pigs or something, you know. But a teacher trying to teach us how to cook the beans and the pork and how much water to put in here and how to cook it. And I got so that I was a stirrer. I would go up and stir things once in a while and check it, you know, and keep enough water on it wouldn't burn. And then sometimes, I was also given a job to put wood in the stove. And I remember one time I got burnt pretty good I forgot I went down to get the wood. It was sort of in a basement like this underneath, and this was in this schoolhouse here. And I went down to get some wood. Meanwhile, what I didn't know, some of the boys had poured some kerosene and stuff in the wood stove, and it was really blasting away, and I didn't know it, and I opened the door, and all came out in my face, and I burnt all my eyebrows off. I singed my hair all the way back here, and my face was burnt, and the teacher grabbed some butter, rubbed my face all in butter, and there I am, you know, I couldn't hardly see, so she had one of the boys take me home, and I got home, and I remember Dad, and then I don't know, they just went ahead and put more butter on me or something, you know, and I was all right, but I didn't have any eyebrows for a while, or no eyelashes, and part of my hair was just singed.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate that I didn't, in fact, that was one nice time that if I had my hair braided, had I had loose hair, then I probably would have been burnt a lot more, because the hair would have caught on fire too, but because of the braids and being pulled back, it was tighter knit, and that saved my hair from getting but I was very careful from then on. And then I know later on in fact, the boy that done it, he really felt bad. He said he should have told me, but of course he didn't think, he didn't know, and I didn't know. And but I learned my lesson to always sort of look or ask or something. And but boy, we kept that stove going. And that was some of the hazards. I can't, other than a lot of times running around out there, the worst things was if you fall off the bike or something, or you fall and hurt yourself, but it wasn't very seriously. Did you get hurt? But just like that one child getting, I think it was appendicitis. I'm not sure, but I know it was something. He's very sick, and I can't remember. But so if the teacher got sick, that was something too.
Oh.
I can remember one of the teachers got ill, and she went out to the outside house, and she was out there for a long time, and she finally we sent one of the older girls went out to see what happened to her, and she came back and she told the boys that they better go get one of the parents because the teacher was sick. And so meanwhile those girls took hold, boy, they right there, you know, that was their job. They took us little kids, you know, and they started reading to us and keeping us calm, cool, and collected. Meanwhile, the boys, all they did was try to go get the parents, you know, and help out that way. Otherwise, they went home, you know, or wherever they went. I'm not sure where they went. And some of the older girls, if they just wanted to putt it around, you know, but these other girls, when they had their job, they seemed to enjoy doing, you know, taking over. And meanwhile, I would just read or look at pictures. And but they took the teacher come back, and she was sick. I don't know what she had, but they took her, I think they got her into the doctor. But she was back the next day, okay. I mean, you know, but I don't know what she had. And I can't remember any of the teachers getting married at that time. I think they either... I can't remember any of the teachers getting married at the time I went to that school. And I think maybe... the only ones that I remember being married is like these older teachers, like this one here I told you about. She was already married and lived on a farm. And she played the piano.
Oh.
I loved hearing her play the piano. We had a piano. I forgot that. Had a piano.
Okay.
I loved to hear her play. Oh, I loved to hear her play. And I don't know why I ended up at her home, and she had a piano there. Oh, could she play? And they played the piano during these skits and so forth too, because we would sing, you know, and I remember one of the songs, Pretty Little Red Wing. Oh, I loved that. I loved that. And that's when a lot of times some of the farmers would come there with their banjos and the guitars and whatever, their fiddles or violins, whatever you wanted to call it, you know. And they'd come there, and I loved that, you know, and we'd have them. And and that's another thing too. On my uncle's farm, he had a big hay mount, and he would have hay barn dances up in that hay mount, and they had the it seems like they called them the Thrasher Boys or some sort, some of the students, and man, they were good, and they'd have a hoedown, and that would bring the that was where the teacher was at that place.
Okay.
And a lot of the parents would get together and they'd have this hoedown there, and us kids would get up there and fool around, you know, trying to dance. But I enjoyed the music. And then they would serve refreshments like cocoa and cookies and cake and things like that. And I'm trying to think of anything else.
Okay.
I don't know.
Can I go ahead and ask more questions, or was there something else you wanted to tell me?
I'll try to help you best I can.
Okay. Let's see. You talked about what you wore. Was there any difference in winter as far as what you wore to school?
Oh, yes. Oh, I do. Yes, yes. Besides the long brown socks. I hate those because you had I call them a rubber band. It wasn't a rubber band, but and they would roll down. And if you didn't watch it, particularly me, I was roughhousing anyhow. Each time I was running or walking, they'd come down around my ankles, you know, and I'd be about tripping on them.
Okay.
Because then I'd have to roll them up, you know. And I was embarrassed a lot of times because I had to roll them up and, you know, hide behind something, or I'd go to the basement or go to the outhouse or something, you know, and roll my socks up. But during the winter, we had snow pants. I did wear snow pants. Yes, I remember that. And we'd get there, and it, you know, getting out of my snow pants and my long coats and my scarves, and, you know, when I walked, I could just about walk like this, you know. And, but we were pretty tough back then, but we dressed for it. And then when I got there, I had to take that all off.
Wow.
And then put it all on. And if I went outside at all, like to the bathroom or something, I had to put it on. And
wow. Now, what were the procedures if you wanted to use the outhouse during school?
Oh, yes, yes. You had to raise your hand. And what was it? Seemed like the signal was number 1. Number 2. Or you just had to go, you know. And if the teacher thought you were serious, you go. But if you didn't, you wouldn't go. And oh boy. And but they let you go. And if you got there too long, they would send somebody out there. And the toilet paper back then wasn't the best. And if you notice those, I got 2 outhouses I built setting up there on that shelf. After the ones we similar to ones we've had.
I'm going to move the camera up a little bit so I can show what those are, what they look like.
Barbara, if you want to get one down, I can show her. That little
Actually,
one's okay. The bigger one's a little heavy, but I'll show you what.
I can zoom in on them.
Well, inside, I threw the 2-holder. Someone asked me one day, why did you have 2 holders? Well, people couldn't believe back then that more than one person would go to the bathroom. A lot of times during school, you know, you had to share. And so inside you had a catalog. We use a lot of Sears and Roebuck catalogs, or any kind of other catalogs, which, or they, once in a while we were graced with a nice roll of toilet paper, which I have inside there. And, but anyway, it was so cold, those seats. And I just, thanks Barb, you didn't linger too long, not in the wintertime. Oh, you had to watch for snakes, because sometimes there'd be snakes inside there. And you could normally tell when there's a snake in there, particularly in the girls. You'd hear everybody scream, you know, but most of us country gals, we were used to snakes, and unless they really bothered, we didn't say much of anything, you know. And
you mentioned the catalogs, and that you had Sears and Roebuck catalogs. Were there other catalogs in your school, and were they used any other ways? Like, did the teacher ever use them as far as like teaching supplies or reading or for math activities?
I can't think of any way the teacher used them. A lot of times if we got a hold of one or something, as kids, we'd look through the pictures and wish we had what was in there, you know. But otherwise, I can't remember them using it as a teaching aid.
Okay.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
But some of the parents would donate things like that.
Okay.
And
Okay.
trying to think.
Yeah. Were there any other teaching aids like maps or globes in the classroom?
Yes, there was globes.
Okay.
There, you know, globe. And yeah, and I enjoyed that. I used to go up and use the globe and turn it around, and I'd run my finger across from the United States to this country and think, oh, I wonder how far that was. And that's where I liked geography. I used to wonder what country, who lived there, how they lived, and what they done, you know. And I really loved geography. I liked history to a point. But to me, history is all right, but I want to know what was going on now. And so geography taught me more what was going on now, whereby, you know, what they grew and so forth, and the clothing and textiles that they sent across, and what they got from us, and but that globe, yes. And I know, particularly during World War II,
Okay.
that came in handy during World War II, because particularly if anybody was talking about, like on the news, if they said our soldiers was in Japan or someplace, then the teacher would point it out on the globe that this is where they were stationed. Or somebody from home would come and say, my brother or my dad is over in Taiwan or someplace, you know. Then the teacher would point it out, and she would let us talk about the soldiers, either friends or relatives, you know, and give the student time to. It seemed like it helped for them to talk about the loved ones they had serving our country, and I thought that was nice in that. So, and particularly if I know if someone would die, you know, it seemed to be. It was a relief for the student to talk to the teacher, and some of the teachers, the better teachers, would let the student talk about the person that died, and where they thought they died, and this helped out. Maybe we'd spend a whole hour talking about something like that, and then that would get started, and Jim over here would say, yes, my dad's over here, and before you know it, everybody had somebody during the war, and I had relatives in the war, and that helped out, and it seemed like there was something else that I can't remember. Oh, yes. They had for a teaching aid these, I can't remember what they were called. Perhaps somebody else would remember. But it was pictures where you put a little thing up here.
Okay.
And they would...
Stereoscope?
What?
Stereoscope?
That could be. I can't remember, but you held it up and you put these cards in, and you could read and see pictures. I enjoyed those. And that was brought to school by somebody, either the teacher or some member of the family. A lot of times the parents would supply things for the teacher to use as a teaching aid, although we were fortunate to have these little aids because everybody was sort of poor enough that you didn't have them. But we enjoyed those things that we did get,
Yes.
And I remember those. And what else did we do? It seemed like there was something else that we used. But that was very nice thing. Oh, I can't remember. No.
Some schools I've read about had phonographs or radios in the classroom.
Phonographs.
Oh.
Record players.
Okay.
We had sometimes, but that was usually brought to school. It wasn't really kept there very long. I mean, they had a table model one, and we would play. We had to learn the national anthem. I remember that. And we pledged allegiance to the flag too. We had to do that, and which to me I thought was pretty proud to do that. I didn't have no problems in it, and then there were some other music. We were doing a history. I remember some of the Tchaikovsky, I believe is how you Beethoven and things.
Yes.
Sometimes the record was brought to school, and for a teaching aid, we would be talking about these people, and then they would listen to the music. And the teacher, one of the things that I think I learned that some of these intelligent people wasn't always, people didn't always think they were very smart. In fact, I guess Einstein, he flunked something or another, and he went on to see what he became.
Yes, amazing.
And in fact, I loved Einstein. I loved studying what he did. I always thought about the car coming, honking, and the sound coming towards you, and then it goes by. I always was fascinated me about that, whatever that was. I was always fascinated by some of the things like that. I didn't always understand it, but we knew that with having pickups and cars, seemed to me, I was trying to think. Well, the boys was interested in a lot about the cars, and the mechanics of cars. And, we got to talk about things like that too. A lot of times it was, and you learned from other students. Like if the boys are talking that he changed a tire on one. He described to the other students what he'd done to change his tire, and everybody just all go. You want to change the tire. After you learn how to do it, you didn't want to do it. Something, but or the motor or something, and something new, and like the airplane that flew over. I always wondered, how did that airplane ever stay up there? I finally learned later how it did, but at the time I thought, what keeps that up there? And then I remember Amelia Earhart. I used to have a record of her, Happy Landings to Amelia Earhart, and I just loved that record because she never returned. They're still to this day, they don't know for sure what happened. And then Lindbergh and different ones who flew. And, but, during we were allowed to talk about some of the things that we were interested in. Perhaps, we didn't have any teaching aids. It was just something that we thought. No. And I loved animals.
Yes.
And I know if a stray dog would come around school, I had it. And now. No. Oh, baby.
Okay.
Oh, he's my watchdog. He's got a tooth in his head, but he lets it think he's a big watchdog there.
Right. Aww.
And I remember one time I found a puppy, and I was allowed to keep that puppy all day long at my. I kept it in the box beside me.
Oh wow.
And I fed it some of my lunch and so forth, and I took it home with me, and Dad thought we had enough dogs around the place. And of course, he always thought the only dogs you should have would be like a bird dog or a honey dog, And so other dogs he tried to get rid of.
Yeah.
But I just thought everything, I felt like I didn't care whether it had a pedigree or not. It was a creature. And animals taught me a lot, and nature taught me more about people than I ever think I learned anything else. I mean, I never saw an ugly animal. You've heard the old story, it's so ugly, it's beautiful, or something just like their mother can't love, but I never saw an ugly animal. And to me, people, I learned that, when you look at a person, I didn't always look at how they features. I looked at, how they express themselves from the heart, I guess you would call it, and and I think that to me I learned from country schools because all kinds of people. We had that's one thing too. We had what was it? We had one of the I can't remember. Well, I don't remember. Different, like if they were Jewish, or if they were a Christian, or if they were Japanese, not Japanese so much. We didn't have much during World War II. Why Japanese? Sorry to say, we were a little prejudiced against them, and that was you might say taught in schools too, because in Germans, but other people you try to think that they were just people like yourself.
So what sort of diversity was there within your classroom?
You mean as far as between
between you and between the students?
Oh, between myself. Well, I was sort of a loner.
Okay.
I like to sit back and either read, or else I sit back and observe people. And body language. That's how I observed animals too. Animals taught me body language better than anything else. And I always felt that for some reason I didn't quite fit in with everybody. but I wanted to, but I thought that some of them was beautiful people, and I didn't quite understand them. And but if I didn't understand some people, or if they were having a problem, I just get me something to read it, or curl up and look at pictures,
Yeah.
or draw.
Right. Did you have any sort of classroom library where you could get books?
The only books there was. They were used books, you know. Either the teacher, some of the teachers brought books to class, and that's and Tom Sawyer, read about him, and like I said, this Dick Jane, and then there was something about animals, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and then there was some others. Oh my mice, if I could just remember. See me, I have some of those around here if I could like. And if they had a lot of pictures in them, I could learn some. Like I said, I always thought the pictures were so beautiful. And I loved looking at those pictures, and then I try to figure out what they were trying to tell you. But a lot of times the happy faces on the people or children in the pictures told you more about what was happening than anything, you know. And so without reading, I could tell what was going on. But I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of some others. Oh, there's that one, Tom Sawyer. Seemed to me there. Seemed to me we read a lot about Indians too, and then there was one about what was the woman Indian that went with
Sacagawea?
the one that went with the well, they have a monument in Sioux City for
Pocahontas?
yeah, Pocahontas.
Okay.
And what was the name of the people that went through Iowa?
Oh, Lewis and Clark?
Yes, Lewis and Clark.
Sacagawea.
Yeah, and things like that. And I always was fascinated by their. I thought, boy, I'd love to be in that. You know?
Yeah.
And let's see, what was it that I was asked to do? It seemed to me that like I said, I like to draw pictures, so sometimes the teacher would have me draw a scenery or something, and I enjoyed that.
What sorts of drawing supplies did you have?
Crayolas.
Okay.
Crayolas or chalk or pencils, but just lead pencils. And once in a while we'd have charcoal. You know, of course, my parents didn't really care for that. I come home, I had more charcoal on me than I had on the paper, I think. And other than that, most of the time it was just pencils and ink. And some crayons, but a lot of our crayons was used, but we didn't care, you know.
Right.
And I know. And sometimes we had the parents, and particularly the school teacher, she'd watch, and if she saw some of the students that, for instance, didn't have hardly any shoes to wear, or stockings, or the brown long stockings. You know, they would, she'd say something, and she'd go around and collect clothing, and then she'd have it in a bag or something at the schoolhouse, and a lot of times she would give, I know she gave me a pair of mittens one time. I had mittens, but I lost them. And I lost them, and I need mittens going home, so she'd give me a pair of mittens. And we had to live, even though we had to help each other out, whether this was in some sort of clothing or some like eating or just talking to one another or something. I don't know. it seemed to me that if I didn't learn math, I learned something else, like geography or something else that made up for that. I wish I could have learned more about math. It would have certainly been helpful to me. Later on, I learned enough about it that I passed, like for flying and so forth, you know. I wish I'd went on. I would have had a better job, maybe, or something.
Maybe.
You never know. But I got interested in enough about science back then that it affected me for the rest of my life, and that's why I in high school I took subjects on science and so forth and whatever. But
Okay. As far as your school day, how was it structured? Like, what did you do at different times?
oh boy.
You mentioned starting the day with Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh yeah, we did that, and it seemed to me the teacher would assign something to the littler kids, to get them, whether it was drawing or painting, not painting much, but something to get them off in the corner, because she had to teach the rest of us more harder subjects, and that would take up more time. And so she tried to give something constructive to the little kids, but so that she could pay attention to what we were doing. And if we had a history test or a geography test or whatever, you know, why she tried to and then later on she would have us studying something while she tended to the littler ones, because we had to study then. But and then we'd have recess.
Yes.
And then we'd have lunch. Then we'd have recess. And then we'd have to go home after bed. So
so basically, you know, you took turns working with the teachers. Were you just at your desks when you worked with the teacher, or did you go up to the front of the room?
well, there was yes, a lot of times she had us. We didn't have too many in one grade.
Right.
See, and so sometimes we would set the seats in the front would have fold down seats. They didn't have a desk in front of them, but they'd have the seats, and they folded down. And you would sit there, and the teacher would sit in her chair. Or a lot of times we just had boxes we'd sit on. And we would talk about whatever the subject, like in geography, why it was brought out what these people were producing. I mean, whether it was food or flour or whatever it was. I can't remember. See, back in there it was like I was fascinated by gum trees or something. I don't know whether you call them gum trees, but whatever, you know, I couldn't, rubber trees or something. I just couldn't figure out how you get them.
Yeah.
You know, but I was interested. I wanted to know, but different things that were shipped to us and what we shipped to them, and we had to name, like in the United States, we had to learn the capital of all the states. And something about that state, like I believe it was Wisconsin, was noted for their dairy. And Iowa, their corn and pigs and cattle, you know, and things like that. And then the industrial cities back along the coast. And I learned, I couldn't figure out, but I learned just on my own, why that along the coast it was more industrial. Well, it's because they were the ocean. I mean, you know, you had a lot of ships coming in there, and things was manufactured there because we come in there for whatever, and then the trains and so forth, and then from there it was shipped out throughout the United States. And
That's all
I
right.
think I'm running out.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I can
What
ask
else?
more questions, or we can stop if you're feeling worn out. If you're ready.
Well, I may have to make a trip to that little. Okay. I'll put them up here beside me then.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll close this one. Oh, I'm so glad. And some of those, they look about the same, but maybe they're different, like 1, 2, and 3. I can't remember. Now, this book here, these books are called the Edison Gray Basic Readers, Book 3. Oh, yeah, here's Book 1. And we'll start out with book, oh yes, and I thought the pictures, I told
Okay.
you about the pictures being
Yeah.
so nice.
Okay, and if you hold them up, I can zoom in on them.
This is reader 1.
Okay.
In fact, I had this book in 1943, I believe, when I started anyway, whenever that was. I forget now. Oh, yeah, 1943, because that is when I first started with book 1, because it has my name in it, and
Okay.
all the pictures were so nice.
Okay, I'm zooming in on that book.
Wanda, I said
Like I
go.
said, it had my name in it and everything, and scribbles.
Yes.
Get back.
And am I helping you any at all?
Yeah.
I'm going to.
Okay.
I'll go to book. Let's see. I'm gonna take my glasses off.
Okay. So these are
Some geography books.
okay.
Oh my geography books. And book 3, 4, 5, and 6. And here's my science
I don't know if this is both looks the same thing, but it's both of your names in it.
But this is the first book.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
both of them's first book.
Well, just.
You got your name in it.
Oh, and here's those nice pictures again.
Okay.
This was hers
Just
too.
love
See
that.
that?
Okay. I'm just gonna zoom in on the farm picture. Okay.
And
See?
they told about Earth's other motions, and the trains and the dams and how to be all making work easier.
Okay.
It seemed to me, oh yes, and here's this one about,
I did.
this one had that experiment in it.
I didn't either.
How he travels from one place to the other.
I was in a big school. I was not in country.
We did a few
Well, I
things
did,
like
but-
that.
I was little.
Oh, I love that. And then here is my geography book.
Right, you didn't get to keep it.
And this has got my name in it. And here again,
Yeah, Colin.
priming it in, I don't know this is the United States. Let me think here. Oh, in Germany, these are hills in Germany. And the Indians and the railroad. I'm trying to find a nice picture I could show.
Well, maybe too, if you could hold up the cover also after you show me the picture, so I can get a good shot of what the book looks like,
Turn on back.
so we know kind of what the
Is
book
that all
is.
right?
Yeah,
I
Essentials
can
of
turn the light on
Geography.
if that would help you.
Oh, that's just fine.
So
So those came from the American Book Company.
no, we didn't keep them. Even when I went to country,
And they showed different pictures, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
but she quit. And they probably redid books and stuff like that. It got changed.
You're so long.
Sometimes
When
they used
you're
to
done.
buy them themselves back then too.
Okay.
They didn't use the school books. They had to buy their own books.
You know, I tell you what, if this, I'm going to go check out here.
Because
Oh, I love that picture. That was such a nice picture. See the comments, I told you about that, And I want to see if this is the same one. And if it's got the same pictures on it. Oh my, Bluefield Route 10. Mary Ward was a school teacher, I guess, at that time. Age 11. I was 11 years old. Essentially, yes, this is the same book. Thelma?
I'll pause.
I don't know. So,
Okay.
Barb, I think she's trying to take a picture.
Well, I wasn't that much.
Nice
anyway.
picture, your shirt. I mean, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and so we, and I was trying to think
these are
of
definitely hers. Got a name all over the.
Yes.
the weather. I was interested in the weather, and
Okay.
Okay.
I tell you, they just,
Yeah, and since you had prices in there, could you read off to me what the each book was and how much it cost?
Let's see.
Just that one, I think.
Or you can
had-
just hold up the cover and tell
just
me.
that one had the price in them.
Okay.
I haven't seen. This one here is hers. Look at there.
seen
Roy
it.
Rogers.
What did I do?
Roy Rogers on the front and Roy Rogers on the back.
Yeah, I pasted that in there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you that
And
was
this
my
book
favorite.
that I have in my hand is Essentials of Geography. And it's noted that it cost $1.60.
I think that's the only one that's got the.
And this was lower priced. How come? Did I buy these? I found these. Kept these. But
This one says
$1.15.
revised edition. Maybe that's the
Oh,
difference.
this is the same thing too.
Okay.
Revised. So you can have that one.
Okay.
Is there anything that I?
3, 5,
You see, this
4.
is
This is your whole set.
yeah,
Except
this,
for one. No, here's one.
yeah, that's one, and that had my
Where's your 2 is gone.
what two?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if it's someplace else that I haven't got.
I'm a duck, quack quack.
I know. It's fun looking through there. You know. How did I remember that?
You know,
Okay. And this in here, I don't know what.
what is that? Oh yeah,
It's
that's
got some letters up here, some things up here, but your name is in there
I
when you were young.
Yeah, Mom. This I pasted.
Well,
Of course, I pasted
You just
Roy Rogers.
you just have your initials on here.
Yes. Oh my.
And you got Roy on the back
American
page.
nations and here again.
Okay.
I think this is more about, yeah, this is in Denver, and I think this is mostly in the United States, I think, yeah.
Neat.
This is in the United States mostly.
Oh, 'cause that's a different geography book than that one.
Yeah, because the Republic of Central America, the West Indies America, Middle America,
I'll
and
go
the
see if I can
War, the
find any
Spaniards,
more.
and the Portuguese
Okay.
in South America. But it does have oh, I love these pictures too.
Okay.
That's I'll
Okay.
show you that.
And just to warn you, we've got about 9 minutes of tape left. Okay.
Well, before we end that tape, is there anything else that you wanted to go over?
Well, I think you've covered things
I would
very well. I guess as we talk about these books, I'd be interested to know where you got them from, if you remember.
You know, I begin to wonder if Mom and them didn't buy these things. You know, now that it brings back a little memory from me, that there was a place that these books was hand-me-downs, maybe.
Okay.
And they bought them, the parents bought them. I mean, you know, like, this might have belonged to Jim Brown over here, and he was done with it, and they put it in a box or something, and then I got them, and I kept them, but I never, I left, and I held on to them. Easy baby. So, I was trying to think about. I could let you have maybe one of these science books. Would you like to have a science book? Yeah. Now these got, as you went on to between 1 and 4 or 6, you know,
Right.
they got more advanced. So I'm trying to see. That's what war this is. Oh, let's see here. Did you get a reader?
No. You just handed me Essentials of Geography.
Let's see. Oh, the airplane.
Neat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I am sorry. You've got to let me know.
Okay.
And I'll show you. Oh, you
Okay.
want some more? Oh, my. I like to give her one of each of these. I'm trying to pick out. Oh, my. Oh, my. That's terrible.
Somebody been drawing that one.
Oh my goodness. Now see, this was a hand-me-down. 5th grade, Norma and Jean somebody, and I got it. Well, but I drew the airplanes in it and everything. This is Longfellow and The Leak in the Dike. Now some poems. I love the poems too. Stories in lighter vein. Of course,
American
and
history.
you can tell that I was. Oh, wait a minute here. I'm not sure that I drew those airplanes. I don't think. I did. Those were sort of advanced for me at that time. I don't think I drew them because I
As
think
small as your
that's
name is, it says OHS. That's small in your high
OHS.
school books.
Yeah, there's the two. OHS, that was $1.25, but that was in high school. So what was it about here? The Christmas Carol, Bob White, The Vanishing Game Bird. Oh, I love those. Is that mine there too?
Oh, doesn't have your name in the front anyways.
But this one's got my name in it, yeah. Well,
Whose name is in the front?
John Cofer?
John who?
Okay. John something.
I wonder. Yeah, I don't recognize him. Is there anything?
And somebody crossed out some other names there.
Yeah, like I said, sometimes they were hand-me-downs.
Hand-me-downs.
And, yeah, like this one was copyrighted in 1913
Okay.
by the author C. Perry Jr. and Gertrude A. Price, copyright in Great Britain.
Wow.
So there, you can take a look at that if you want.
Okay.
You know. And,
So this is American history, first book.
oh, I love this story. Maybe the outlaw horse, Coley Bay, the outlaw horse. Oh, Barb, there you go.
Yeah, I read that one.
You read that
I
one?
read that story.
Oh, you did?
Pretty much anything with horses in it, I read the stories.
Oh my goodness.
I remember that story from a book I had.
Okay. Bob White and the Game Keeper. You know, this has got mine. I was in high school. Well, she wants a one-room schoolhouse, so we'll just,
Yeah.
OHS doesn't qualify.
you know. Barbara Ann Hoover. Now, this here is the sign. Oh, I loved. Oh my goodness, well. Oh yes, I remember building this. The battery and the bell and the button. Oh my, yes, things to do. I sometimes did this at home on my own too.
Okay.
Then I took, so I might, this is Science Book 4. Why don't I just let you have this?
Okay.
And then give you an idea of what we had back then, if that's
Okay.
all right.
That'd be excellent to look at for research. And I don't know if they'll want it for the museum after we're done with it, or if you want it
Whatever.
back.
No, just because one of these days I won't know where to give it to, and if
Okay.
it'll help,
Sure.
you know.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Now, have you got one about a each of everything I got, or what do you
Let's
got
see.
now? Let's see what you have
You
here.
gave me the Essentials of Geography, 1, Wonder World of Science, 4. Was this one you wanted me to take or
What
not?
is that one? Now, that was, oh, American history. Well, that was a hand-me-down.
Okay.
But it was mine, but I don't have a name in it. I got, boy, it was,
It's rather well used.
oh yeah, that was really used. I can't figure out what grade I was in that I would have this.
Okay.
I mean, if you want that, you can, but I think that was a history, from,
High school?
no, I don't think it was now since, I can't remember. I thought maybe I'd find something else back here that would give us another clue. Oh my, well. Is that too rugged to give you? I mean, you know,
No.
it's sort of an old book. Is that
It's
too
fine.
bad?
It's fine.
You sure?
Yes.
Well, you may have that one too, but I was trying to think of a better one. Now, you've got a geography book, you've got a science book you have, do you?
Yeah.
Yes. A history book, and then was there a reader?
Do you have a reader?
No.
Okay, let's see what we can do with the reader. Oh my, this is the latest one here. Spanish book. Boot black.
Okay.
This is the last one I had. So and it was a more modern, and I tell you what, I'll give you this, and I tell you what I'm going to do. I think I'll give you number 1, because there's no
Okay.
use to me. Thelma! Oh, just a minute. Thelma, where are you? Can you come front and send me?
Okay, camera's back on. If you do you want camera, just tell us which ones you're giving us,
Okay.
and that sort of thing.
Okay, number 1 was
Okay.
when I started in 1943. You'll find two different names in here, and the reason why I was adopted.
Oh,
And so
okay.
this was my name before I was adopted. This is my name after I was adopted. So in case you wonder why there's two different names in there. Because when I first started at school, it had my real name. And this is number 1. That's
Okay.
the number 1 book. And then number 6 was our last one. Where is it at? Is that number 6?
That's number 6.
Okay. There's these two then.
Okay. So then number 6 was from your last year in country school? Or
Yeah,
almost to
I believe
last?
it was. I'm not sure. I can't remember. It's the
Okay.
last one I had. And then this, I think this is a high school. No, this is a hand-me-down. I don't know. I don't know whose it was and why. It's book 5. The
You recognize it?